and welcome to Post Amp. My name is Preston. I'm here with my buddies Grant and Austin.
Sup.
And we're here, season 1, episode 4, talking about an album from my birth year. That's right, we're talking about the seminal third record from Green Day. That's right, Dookie. Austin's favorite record.
Since it's the third, does that make it the junior record? If a
Yeah,
second
freshman, sophomore, junior.
Perfect.
It's just, you do the math.
Yeah.
But this is a wild record, wild time. Austin and I are both 1994 boys. So, I mean, personally, I guess every record we've done, but this one more directly, we've not existed in a world without Dookie by Green Day. So, pretty fun. Came out February 1st, 1994.
You've also not existed in a world without any of the other ones.
I said that.
No, that's what he was getting at.
Yeah.
Delete that.
Delete it. Cancel it. Twitter canceled.
Cancel the show.
But yeah, this is number 193 on the Rolling Stone 500. I would call it a mid-90s masterpiece. I think it's a pretty like California embodying record, recorded in Berkeley after Green Day's kind of started on this underground punk career. And it kind of allowed pop punk and emo to enter the mainstream throughout the 90s and 2000s. The trio, Billy Joe Armstrong, Mike Durst, and Trey Cool, just releasing this great record recorded over 2 months in Berkeley, California. And
I was talking to Adam one day about Green Day, and he said, "Don't they have a guy in their band named Joe Dirt?" I said, "No, it's Mike Durst." He said, "Oh,
Billy Joe Dirt."
Billy Joe Dirt Armstrong Dirt.
And that brings us to our sponsor, Joe Dirt. That's right. That old comedy from 2003 or whenever it came out. Please stream wherever you can find it. Austin's being quiet.
Yeah. Well, I'm just going to go ahead and say this at the top of the episode.
Bring it on.
If Green Day, if this record by Green Day is Lil Sebastian, I am Ben Wyatt. For all of you Parks and Recs fans, I don't get it.
Okay. Great.
It's fine.
Just fine.
It's fine.
What's interesting to me, and we'll get to fast facts in a second, and our personal relationship to this piece, but this is prime mid-90s music for sure. And Pearl Jam releases a record in 94. Soundgarden releases a record in 94. Nirvana's live acoustic MTV Unplugged record comes out in 94. So all these like grungy, heavy Pacific Northwest records come out this year. And I've kind of read and heard and thought a lot about this is like a extroverted version of some of those themes that have been explored on like a deeper, darker side of like the grunge era, And we'll get into meaning and significance and everything, but it's funny to think about how this, it's just opens the gate, like we said, for pop punk to kind of like enter the mainstream. Like Nevermind by Nirvana enters the scene early 90s, and it kind of like shatters the whole rock music genre. And I don't think like without, that record and things like it, like we get this, but it just, they're all building up on each other to create just like a different music outlook for the 90s and 2000s. But I respect your opinion. I think it's great. And helpful, legitimately. But yeah. Grant, you like this record?
Love this record.
What's your personal relationship to the record?
Well, I actually remember when some of the singles were still played on the radio. So that was a fun time. I mean, they were hot for years, and remember growing up with those. I was not really allowed to listen to Green Day as a kid.
Is it because they had poop on their album cover?
No, I'd say it was more the lyrical content.
That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah. But funny enough, kid I went to church with had had all their CDs, and he was like, "Hey man, just take these home with you." And I was like, "Sweet."
Classic.
Yeah. So,
So classic.
So yeah, grew up listening to Green Day. I guess once I was like 11 or 12, really started like listening to whole albums of Green Day, more than just like the radio singles.
Right.
And yeah, this was one of my faves. And then a really like personal story about it. I guess somewhere along the way, my dad had started listening to Green Day. I don't really know when that was. We never really listened to them together. And one night I picked him and my mom up from my aunt's house, and I had just gotten my Suburban, and I had all my CDs in my car, like in the huge console in the Suburban, and Dookie was what I had in, and Longview comes on. My parents are in the car, and I've got it blasting, like, just cranked up, and I was like,
probably the best song in that situation.
yeah, for sure. And I was like, I may turn this down. We'll just kind of gauge the car here. My mom was kind of like, if you turned it down, I wouldn't be mad. And then my dad started singing along, and I was like, sick. And so we started singing Longview together. He was in the passenger seat. My mom's in the back, like in the middle, like on the bench seat, like in the middle, like leaning up between us, like, will you please turn this down? And we're like, no, we're rocking out.
That's so good.
So yeah, a lot of good memories to this album.
Good. Yeah, similar to you, I remember a lot of the tracks from. I feel like we all had like a quote unquote bad influence of an older cousin or friend that like was allowed to watch MTV or like played.
Yeah,
like their mom let them listen to a whatever radio station, and from that outlet you would be exposed to things like. I feel like the lasting radio singles were like When I Come Around and Basket Case sometimes, but I think my like first like real eyes wide open exposure to this was one time me and my family, we were at a Hard Rock Cafe, which side note, my family is like white conservative Bible Belt people as we are, or they are like, they have this weird infatuation with going to Hard Rock cafes wherever they go. My mom collects like guitar pins from Hard Rock Cafe.
Yeah.
So I think we were in a Hard Rock Cafe in Indianapolis or somewhere random like Midwest. And anyway, they always play music videos at Hard Rock Cafe, obviously. And Basket Case came on. And I was probably 12 or 13. And I'd probably heard the song in passing before, but it just demanded my attention fully. And I just remember kind of my attention being taken away from the table and the family and conversation, just being so enamored by this song and how honest and raw and fun it was. And yeah, just like really identified and loved it. As like a 12 or 13-year-old, but it's fun. And I think that's like a part of this album's masterpiece or achievement is that it kind of like wraps up adolescence or kind of, I don't know, being a young man in a lot of ways. And it just relates to so many people in that. Austin, personal relationship to the record?
I hadn't listened to it until a week ago.
Yeah.
Ever. Outside of Basket Case and
right.
When You Come Around. And this is where I'm going to say my last truly salty thing.
No, bring it on.
Episode.
Stay salty.
Well, no, I'll keep the salt up here. I'll be critical later, but the salt will be here.
Right.
I have in my mind a list of songs that I hear once, and I'm just content if I never hear them again. Like I would be okay if that's all I ever had. 2 of those songs are on this record. And they are, as I'm sure you could guess, Basket Case and When You Come Around.
When I come around.
Whatever.
Hey, when you come around to liking that song, then it will matter.
Happen. Here's the thing, though. Those 2 songs are the ones that I remember hearing constantly on the radio to the point that I was so sick of it as a young person.
I will say,
I'm very old now, I guess.
The fact that some of these singles, for better or for worse, were lasting on the radio for 10, 15, 20 years is pretty wild. And I'll say this about Green Day too. This is pre American Idiot. This is pre 2000 stadium tours. This is pre like 2010. They came out with rock band Green Day, which is just I feel like that you've like completely sold out at that point when there's like a video game made after you know like this is
unless you're Tony Hawk.
yeah, of course. But this this record precurses all of that. And it's funny because it precurses all of that, you know, sellout or whatever you want to call that pop mainstream whatever. I mean, there was literally a Broadway play about American Idiot, but um it's funny because this release kind of alienated them from the underground punk scene in Berkeley or, you know, California at the time, which is just funny because that alienated them. And then like their stadium sellout kind of career, like later and later, I feel like they garnered such a huge mainstream following, but it's just like weird the levels and layers of different underground follow. But I feel like this record is so much more genuinely punk than what comes later, you know?
Oh, for sure, for sure.
And I think there's an element of that too, just in like having wealth and having achieved success. Like there's something that's like inherently more honest about them singing about, you know, public, you know, just frustration or living by yourself
issues.
for the first time moving out. Like all those things are way much more, honest and real to their situation as young 20-year-olds.
Can I say something though about what we just said?
Yes.
Especially if the guys are listening. Like good for you guys. You know, like I've liked a lot of bands that have kind of moved that direction. And it's like, look, I'm not going to quit liking you. It's just harder for me to like
for
you,
sure.
You know? But I mean, definitely like proud of, I mean, it's, if I was in that position, it's what I would do too. Right. You know, like
for sure.
I don't know.
Well, I love this album, and I lump it in as one of the greatest albums of the 90s, but they came out with an album recently, like last week or 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I have no interest in listening to it.
Yeah, same.
Which is such a funny spectrum, but
right. That's what, and that's kind of what I'm saying. I mean, and without like name dropping other bands that this has happened with, but you know, I'm proud of them as artists for making the living that I hope they desired, you know, when they set off on the journey 25, 30 years ago.
For sure.
So yeah, that's what I have to say about that.
Any fast facts, fun little nuggets about the record?
I got none.
None? Yeah, so I mean, we don't be doing this too well, but I love the album artwork on this record. There's a pretty great collage. I feel like that is pretty just colorfully in agreement with what's going on musically. The liner notes are great, like the hand-drawn things and lyrics inside. The back cover, and there's like an explosion with Green Day font kind of coming out. There's some homages to Angus Young and Black Sabbath on the front cover, which is sweet. The back cover, if you know, it has just Ernie from Sesame Street, from Bert and Ernie. Just,
I mean, it's like he's like a puppet, I guess.
Yeah, it's just a puppet of Ernie, just moshing, just in the middle of a wild crowd, just getting after it. That's a real fun fact. Apparently, later covers of this they removed because they were concerned with being sued by Jim Henson Company. But did you have any other facts, Grant?
I mean, I just love that we're sitting here looking at one with Ernie.
With Ernie on the back, yeah.
So.
This is on. It's funny. This was on Reprise Records. So they were kind of getting recruited by these bigger labels, like in the early '90s, and they ultimately go with Reprise, specifically with the guy who produces the record, Rob. Is it Cavallo or Cavallo? I don't know if it's Cavallo or Cavallo, but we'll go with Cavallo.
Not sure.
But anyway, they get touted by all these record companies. They ultimately land with Reprise. And it's funny to me because Reprise was a record company that was started by Frank Sinatra,
who famously hated all forms of rock and roll.
Right.
In the 50s and 60s.
Right. And I feel like Frank Sinatra probably turned in his grave if he would have, I don't know.
He was still alive at this point, wasn't he?
I think, yeah. Yeah, mid-90s. Yeah. So just a funny thing there. Also, they threw a free show in September of '94, and I read this really great article on The Ringer about it. And There ended up being 45 arrests and 100 hospitalizations from the free show. It's pretty rock and
Sounds
roll.
like a success.
The original album working title was Liquid Dookie, but the people thought that wouldn't sell. So I get it, but
I'm not sure how Dookie seems more sellable than Liquid Dookie, but I mean, whatever.
Yeah.
It proved it's proven itself over the years.
And last little fact, last year was the 25th anniversary or birthday of the album. Also, Austin and I turned 25 last year, so pretty fun. Yeah, and they played the album in full a couple times last year at Reading Festival, and then they played it in Spain in October, like the album in full, which is pretty fun. I really appreciate something that gets people going 25 or 30 years later. I don't know. There's something that's maybe like harmfully nostalgic about it, but there's also something that's like really sweet about it that it still like holds up in a lot of ways. So I love it. And like we said, Billy Joe Armstrong on guitar and lead vocal, wrote most of the music. Mike Dirnt on bass, getting turnt. And then
Turnt with dirt.
Turnt with dirt. Our producer Asher's just shaking his head. And then Trey Cool, which is probably the most toolish just name ever for a drummer.
Now don't forget the little accent. Over the
yeah,
E.
you
Trey.
for sure. All right, well let's hop in track by track really quickly. Okay, yeah, this record starts off with a sleek 2 minute 7-second track, Burnout. Thoughts on the track?
Quick hitter.
Yeah.
I honestly like every song on the album.
Yeah.
I really do. I don't know. As a fan of punk rock music, they're easy to listen to for me. I think Austin would disagree, but they're easy for me to listen to. I really do like them all, the hits and the ones that are easily overlooked.
I think Burnout carries this pretty shining punk. There's in the 70s and 80s, there's this consistency in punk music to just like have these like heavy hitting like 2-3 minute singles that are just like really fast and then done. But like have like pretty obviously just heavy hitting lyrics, and this is like a good opener to kind of embody all of that. So I think there's like a slight just love letter to like all the punk that's kind of come before and in opening this album. You know, I like it. Austin, thoughts on Burnout?
I think it was the most directly punk one. Like when I first started up the record, I immediately thought of the Ramones.
Yeah.
Just because it was so clear that that's maybe not what they were trying to do, but it is clear that they have that influence behind them.
It's good. It's a good opener. Goes on to Having a Blast, which we were talking about before we hit record. This idea of kind of exploding either literally or metaphorically with emotions probably didn't age well with Oklahoma City bombing and the World Trade Center bombing later in 94. But it gets the point across.
Already released it. What you gonna do?
I bet they didn't perform this one live too many times after 94, but
Probably not.
Yeah, not shortly thereafter, at least.
any other thoughts on Having a Blast?
Nope.
Austin is just so excited to talk about this album.
I'll just go ahead and lay this out now. I've never really understood punk music.
Okay.
Like there's a handful of songs that I can enjoy from the genre, but just overall, I don't get it. Like what makes good punk, you know?
Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get to that. Talk about the meaning. Yeah.
Well, yeah, we'll get there.
Goes on to Chump.
Dig this one.
Yeah, it's really honestly the Chump Longview Welcome to Paradise just stretch is really rich.
Yeah.
Really, really, really rich.
And like I said, I mean, 10 minutes and you get 3 just amazing tracks off, you know, a 14 track album. I don't know. I like that. I mean, most people, you know, quick drive to work, run out to the store, whatever. Oh yeah, tracks 3, 4, and 5. I'm gonna rock out while I'm driving.
And the album's only 39 minutes long. And yeah, they're just kind of hitting back to back. I love the instrumental outro of this that goes into Longview, which Longview, I think Longview is the first single on the record.
Yeah.
That they released in late 93, early 94. And Longview is just really great. Homage to a town in Washington. Yeah, really great track. Do you have thoughts on Longview?
I mean, like I said, this was one of the singles I actually remember like riding around in the car, hearing on the radio. I love it. It's one of my faves.
The the chorus of this is pretty bite my lip, close my eyes. There's a lot going on here. Just tied in with all the good, rich themes that are being explored on this.
Very wholesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I went back to
subtle
this.
and nuanced.
That's why this is the song that won my mom over
Yeah,
to
I
letting
was
me
gonna
listen
say,
to Green Day, you know?
This is what our parents loved about Green
Yeah.
Day.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Welcome to Paradise is next, like we said, featured on some good old Carnival Cruise Line commercials in the 2000s.
In case you get tired of the old man, you know, like with the cane, watch one with this in it.
And I think Welcome to Paradise was re-recorded. It was originally on Kerplunk, and they wanted to clean it up, make it less grainy. And so with this, like, big label release, they wanted to redo it, which is pretty fun. Goes on to Pulling Teeth, which is fine. It's good. Pulling Teeth is good. It reminds me of Anesthesia, Pulling Teeth by Metallica. Not musically, but just,
Just the fact
The
that
words pulling teeth.
yeah, that's probably why it reminds me of it. Is the same title probably. But I think, and we'll get into more of this, but like this song is about domestic or relational abuse, but it's kind of like cleaned up and put into this like pop format. And I think that's part of the appeal of like punk music is just the harsh reality of just everyday crappy occurrences in life, and kind of like, for better or for worse, owning them and
Yep.
just singing about them and artistically dealing with them. But yeah, Broken Bones, Nasty Cuts, yeah, Violent, Disturbed. There's a lot of just language that kind of comes out in like a popular. It's wild how many records this moves. It sells over 10 million, 15 million records in the 90s, and people apparently are identifying with all these just tough, heavy themes that are kind of like put in this pop format, Going on to, what's up?
I was going to say whether it's like because of this record or records like it or not, things like domestic violence and a lot of the issues being dealt with on this record have come more into the public spotlight and are being dealt with more directly.
For sure. And that's a perfect segue to the next track, Basket Case, which is a deep dive into Billie Joe Armstrong's, unnamed dealings with anxiety,
yeah.
depressive stuff. And that's like way moved into the spotlight. And it wasn't really addressed or dealt with well. And it's still not, but this is like him dealing with that. Thoughts on Basket Case?
I don't want to go
too deeply,
too deep into it, but I can rock out to this song, and Preston knows this. Our producer Asher played this at a gig one night, and we danced and moshed and did ridiculous
gestures and dances to the song. Yeah.
Then we also sang at New Year's Eve for karaoke.
Yes.
No, we didn't need the screen. We just faced the crowd because
Grant and I took the microphones, faced the crowd, did not need the TV. We just yelled Basket Case, and no one there wanted it, and it was probably similar to the tone of this podcast. But going on to She, the next track, kind of written like for and from the perspective of his mother. Is that right?
Yeah.
Which is really sweet, but in a weird way.
And awesome. I mean, awesome song and bass line.
I think this was a single that was cut from it as well. Goes on to Sassafras Roots. Pretty fine. Good track. A lot of 2.5 minute cuts in here. And then, When I Come Around, big heavy hitter, radio play. I think one of the more like lasting tracks from their catalog. They probably played it live hundreds of times.
Oh, yeah.
93.1 loved it when I was growing up. I know that.
That's so great.
80s, 90s, and now.
Coming Clean is next. Which, I mean, similarly, it kind of like embodies that precursing comments on themes that I think haven't really been addressed at this point in music or artistic history. And call that California, call that the punk genre, or call it whatever. But
call it pathetic, call it what you will.
Right. And the next track, how do you even say?
Anemius Sleepus.
Yeah.
This is the only one not written by Billy
Right.
Joe.
This is an LSD trip from Mike, right? Is that this track? Yeah.
So
We've all been there. I've personally not been there, but hopefully my employer just hears that and asks me questions about it later. Yeah, in the end, next track, solid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Solid.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of funny. The last 4 tracks on the album just kind of run together
I agree.
for me. And
Well,
then
I actually disagree with that.
Oh yeah. What's
okay,
your thoughts
let's
on in
hear
the
it.
end?
Oh, I have no thoughts on In the End.
You have thoughts on FOD?
Yes.
Okay, I agree. Definitely standout track.
Hmm.
So I guess we're moving on to FOD.
So FOD. FOD with hidden track all by myself. on the
Hidden
end.
track. I mean, you gotta love that there's some variety there. You know,
Yeah.
slower track.
And that's one thing that I enjoyed Longview, FOD, mostly only those two, because they're the most dynamic ones on the record. I feel like it,
FOD has the acoustic intro
and then
Yep.
builds
like,
up
the
to
really
the,
hard end.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you sit and listen to silence for a minute or 2 maybe,
It's a second, yeah.
and then you get all by myself.
All by myself. Yeah.
And I always loved that about this album. I know it's not like ingenious or like something new or different, from many other albums released prior, but gotta love a hidden track.
Yeah, just a little
I
hidden track.
appreciated it because it, to me, kind of felt like tying into the larger music history. Like when I heard that, I could think, oh, this is Her Majesty on Abbey Road. This is
Mm-hmm.
almost Outside the Wall from The Wall.
Yeah.
Or like that really weird noise at the end of Sgt. Pepper's.
They,
Like
so
the crazy guitar intro on that song.
we'll get to influences in the categories, but I was reading stories just about them kind of starting up, and Billy Joe Armstrong and Mike Dirnt had a long relationship leading up. They had another band, and they recorded 2 other albums, and they were kind of just punk underground artists. Like, and Billy Joe Armstrong from the age of 10, like wanted to be a musician, and all these like really cool kind of stories that lead up to this release, but. Apparently he and Mike used to just like sit around and play Beatles music. That was like one of their big kind of go-tos and heavy hitters, which is really sweet. I feel like we could say the Beatles are influence for every album that we release or we talk about, but I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, I think hidden track, it's like a fun just thing to agree with like the rest of the music community and good albums that have been released.
Yeah.
I love Life is for Living at the end of the first Coldplay record. I think it's really great. Hidden and Everything's Not Lost. Kind of made me think of that in like a much different way. But all right, any other comments on the record before we get into categories?
I think we're good to move on to categories.
Do you want me
moving
and
on.
Grant to sing karaoke basket case for the full?
We'll do that later.
Oh.
We'll close with that.
Wait, do we have the time?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Do you have the time?
Asher's not nodding yes. I will say one last thing about basket case.
Asher's
one little fast
practically
fact.
begging us to sing it right now.
The music video was really popular. They recorded it in an actual insane asylum in California, and supposedly it was recorded in black and white. And they went back and colorized it, which is why it's so saturated and kind of wild looking, but really sweet. All right, you ready for categories?
Ready.
Ready?
Yep.
Ready? Okay.
Ready.
First category. What is the best track on Dookie? Nominees.
Best man, everything about this episode category wise was difficult for me.
I agree.
Nominees, She, Basket Case, Longview.
I respect that. I'll second Longview and Basket Case. I know Austin probably thinks that every track is the best track on the record. Is that right?
I'm voting for Longview.
Longview.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right.
Longview.
All right.
I'll see. I would make a case for Basket Case. I feel like the production is
Did
oddly.
you mean to do that?
What? No, I wrote down.
Case for Basket
I'll
Case.
make a case for Basket Case.
I'll make a
Just
case
let
for
me-
Basket.
Let me make a case, just brief case for Basket Case. Let's see how many times we can say case. Um, I think I will kind of what we were talking about in terms of issues on this record that are addressed that are really precursing and bringing into the spotlight.
Mhm.
I feel like Basket Case is pretty on the nose with that. Like it's talking about anxiety stuff, and that's like obviously having a huge cultural moment right now. And musically, I feel like it's the production's like really, really, really cleaned up and
Yeah.
sounds, you know, maybe this is like a weakness, but it sounds less 90s than a lot of it. It's so proto 90s, but it still kind of sounds like its own song apart from like the rest of their catalog. And maybe I just heard it so many times it's kind of like separated from this record, but I think it's really great. Grant, what's your argument for Longview? Debate me.
Honestly, my argument would be for She.
Okay.
I've always loved the song. A friend of mine pointed it out when I really hadn't listened to the whole album, cover to cover. I guess like 6 or 7 years ago. And he was like, man, that intro in She. I was like, I hadn't really listened to that one much. And so I just decided to just play the whole album front to back. And She came on and I was like, this is what he's talking about. Like I get it. And ever since then, I just really have I don't know, had a little more connection with the song and really enjoy it.
That's good.
Yeah.
I think if we were to do like a runoff voting system, if we all said Longview, I think Longview is probably the winner. Yeah.
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 Agree. I mean, yes, in that case, yeah.
Case?
In that basket
case.
Longview is going to be the one that wins that.
Okay, next category, best musical moment. What are your favorite little musical touches on this album?
I love the acoustic opening on FOD because there's been none of that
The
throughout
whole
the rest
time.
of the record.
The whole time. Yeah. So when I first went back to this last week, I sat in my car and was driving home from work and then just kind of like let the album finish. And I was almost taken aback by how subtly beautiful the intro to FOD was. It was like a little breath of fresh air in the midst of this like crazy in your face punk record, you know?
Yeah.
I love the FOD intro. And the song's really dynamic and beautiful too. It's great.
And they continue that too, if you look forward to like Good Riddance.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, like they do that here and there, continuing on in later albums as well.
I think some other like really great outstanding musical moments. The vocal performance on Basket Case is just really classic.
Yeah.
I love the bass work and transition between Chump and Longview. We mentioned that a little bit.
Yep.
That's really great. It's funny. Austin and I were talking about this earlier on the Spotify version. For some reason, there's like a tiny glitch, and it's the most like unsatisfying, frustrating thing in the world.
Skips half a beat and gets a little bit louder between tracks.
Really?
Yes. Yeah. And it should be so seamless, but yeah. I know on the CD, like if you listen to it front to back, it's pretty seamless, but it's just a funny.
I think that's all I've ever listened to it on is my
the full album,
my CD that I've kept in my Suburban and now my Toyota.
You borrowed from your church friend that you never gave back.
It's actually a different copy,
rock, dude.
It's actually a different copy. So, Chris, glad you have those back.
Any other big musical moments? Outstanding. Great little touches.
I loved the drum fills in between guitar, like everybody's playing together, and then you just get Trey just ripping on the drums, then some guitar bass solo, ripping on the drums. Several tracks do it.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that. I also enjoyed just him hitting the bell of his ride throughout the album.
Yeah.
You get it a ton.
Despite the quick 2-3 minute kind of punk feel tracks, there's like some really great jammy, groovy moments that they're just like having fun, And supposedly, I feel like the recording of this, the production of it, like really captures a live in your face feel really well, despite, like them kind of hopping into a bigger label. Like it could have easily been like overproduced. And apparently the original production and mix, they ultimately ex-nayed because they wanted to like make it sound right and kind of retain the energy live stuff. But I'm with you. I dig that. All right, y'all want to talk influences a little bit?
Let's do it.
Yeah, influences. Okay, yeah. Who are some big? Just as you guys are listening, y'all thinking of the past artists, 70s, 80s rock artists? Who are you thinking of?
The Ramones,
Yep,
Sex Pistols.
Sex Pistols,
The Clash.
Clash.
Yeah. Buzzcocks, the Muffs, the Jam, Beatles, like we said, Ramones, Skids, Dead Kennedys, the Damned, Black Flag. All of them kind of. Even I was talking about recording or production. Billy Joe Armstrong apparently like going into production like told the producer that he wanted to like capture the energy of like early Black Sabbath stuff. Which is really sweet. Again, it's like these 20, 30-year-old records at this point that are still kind of holding up and contributing to the modern music community, which is sweet. But yeah, there's a couple tracks. I was talking to Austin earlier. There's one or two songs on the front half of Dookie that like I thought going back to it sounded exactly like a Buzzcocks track. Which was kind of fun. I think that can be a negative thing. It's like, oh yeah, all punk rock sounds the same. Maybe like something Austin would say, but
I've said it today.
But there's something that's like also kind of sweet about that. Like you can see the fingerprints of those other artists that are contributing. And then this influenced so much. Like again, we're arguing and saying that this record opened the door for pop punk to hit mainstream. All of the emo alternative movement in the late 90s, early 2000s. Yeah, some of those artists. Who'd y'all say this record influenced?
That was kind of, it was funny because I saw a lot more influence on the album than I saw the album have directly in terms of like emulation in the future. I mean, I'm sure it's out there. What do you got?
I said,
arguably any punk band.
Yeah, I mean, Blink-182, My Chemical Romance, Sum 41, Paramore, Fall Out Boy, Simple Plan, Yellow Card, some more like modern, more indie punk artists, Joyce Maynard, Modern Baseball, Sorority Noise, Waves.
I did think a lot about some Yellow Card.
Yeah,
some of their tracks and like how they, I mean, obviously took it and made their music their own.
I think for, kids or teens like growing up in the 90s, this album with its, 10 or 15 million deliveries and the reality, like the whole music industry seeing that people are going to buy into this, it gives freedom and gives a voice and gives a platform for people to be, just more honest and emotive, like with their music. And that like leads to the whole emo movement, and that's like it's almost like a joke. It's almost like a retrospective joke at this point. Like you can go to a party and somebody will put on Sugar We're Going Down and just like ironically dance to it or what, but it's just like, I think all of that was allowed in part by, just Billy Joe Armstrong kind of like flexing his honest cheeks on on this, 1994 release. So I think it's, highly influential. Okay. Next category. Is this the artist's best album? Thoughts?
I can't say.
No?
I say no.
What do you think's the best?
Nimrod's always been.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Always been mine.
Nimrod's your fave.
Yeah.
I think this is their best record. I think similar to, I think it's really sweet when artists like their second or third records kind of what puts them on the map. I was thinking of Bruce Springsteen. Bruce Springsteen like releases Asbury Park and then I can't remember right now the other one, and then his third record's like All or Nothing, releases Born to Run, and it like puts him on the map. And I was thinking about this for them. It's like they're kind of stepping out into the public, turning their back on their like low key punk community, and it's like really just like musically achieving. But I thought it was their best. Austin, I know you've like dug deeply into all their catalog, so
I've not.
If you talk about, I mean,
don't mislead our faithful listeners.
If you could maybe argue that American Idiot kind of had more like wide influence with the Broadway show and everything, but I think this is their best. Okay, who's the MVP of this album? Who's the most valuable player?
I'm gonna say Trey Cool.
Most valuable most valuable player. Who you got? Trey Cool?
Yeah.
I respect that. What's your case for Trey Cool?
Him and Mike Turnt.
Joe Dirt.
Joe Dirt.
Oh, sorry, Joe Dirt. Just both of them. There's a few breakdowns on the record that really stood out to me
Mhm.
beyond anything else, and so that's my argument.
Grant, MVP?
I mean, I think Billy Joe.
Yeah.
Without his songwriting, without his without the emotion that went into the album, you don't get what this finished product is.
I agree. There's something special about him from age 10 wanting to be a musician, kind of being fully honest about everything, like anxiety, sexuality,
Yeah.
just all of the deeply emotive things that are again like put into this pop outlet, and then everybody like believing it and buying into it and identifying with it. It was like really risky, and again he like turned his back on the punk community, like or at least the underground punk community, but
Right.
it like ultimately like made a bigger indent for the whole community than it would have had he just like kind of stayed comfortable with what they had. So yeah, I would argue Billy Joe, and it's funny he's like kind of not having a full on cultural moment right now, but there's a really fun interview with him recently with Billie Eilish. It was like Billy interviews Billy on a Rolling Stone, which was kind of fun. But still some relevance. He said some goofy things throughout the years, but who hasn't, you know? Okay, next category. Desert Island. Is this a Desert Island record for you?
Oh, for sure. Yes.
Wow, we converted
Austin,
him.
I sense no irony in your voice.
None whatsoever.
Just you're a young boy.
Yes.
You're on a desert island.
Yeah.
You're really just trying to get the t-shirts.
Mm-hmm.
Shaking the dew off your face.
Stop.
So no, this is not a Desert Island record.
No, it is not.
Is that what I'm gathering from your tone here?
You're correct. Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes, sir.
Grant.
It is for me. I think I may end up with multiple Green Day albums on my Desert Island.
Okay.
So
yeah.
But yeah, this one definitely is.
I think this is an honorable mention Desert Island record for me, but I don't think it's making. If I'm doing like a Desert Island collection from 1994, this is maybe on there. Huh.
Okay.
But
along with maybe
do
two
you
or
have
three
time
others.
getting
let's,
off the
let's hear
sinking
what
ship?
else. What else makes it from 94?
It's a great year. Probably the Lion King soundtrack.
Okay.
Solid.
And that's it. The Lion King soundtrack and Green Day. I'm just gonna just have a good time on the island.
That's a range.
Okay. This is an interesting one. So fun. So our next category is what track makes it to the Forrest Gump soundtrack. This is just fun connection here. So we talked about Ernie being on the back of the record, which is really fun and great. In Forrest Gump, when Forrest meets his son, Forrest Jr., and he goes off to watch TV, he turns on Sesame Street and Bert and Ernie is on the TV.
And Longview is playing.
Wait, so that's what you're recommending? Is that
No.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that would be.
Oh, that would be so tough.
Yeah.
Okay, so serious recommendations for what track makes it to Forrest Gump.
My recommendation would honestly be I don't blend the two. I'm not blending Green Day with Forrest Gump.
Okay. They came out the same year.
No, that's not an acceptable answer.
They came out in the same year.
You have to pick one.
You can make a scene, or you know what? I mean, just one track, maybe even like in credits because it came out in 94. What track is playing over the credits?
Oh.
It can't be All By Myself because that would just wreck the tone of the movie.
Maybe that's playing on. Maybe Ernie is playing All By Myself on the TV.
Maybe All By Myself when Forrest starts running.
Okay.
Like he's he just starts.
It's just like a subtle intro. From that day on, if I was going somewhere
All by myself.
Hopefully I don't get copyrights trouble. Okay.
Yay!
Austin, what songs make it to the Forrest Gump soundtrack?
That's a tough
Oh, you have to pick one.
thing to answer. I know, but I'm acknowledging how hard it is. Grant. That's what she said. I think that perhaps Welcome to Paradise.
Like a montage type moment or something?
Right when they get to
like
Vietnam.
when he returns to Greenbow, maybe.
Greenbow Alibi.
He gets all that money from the fruit company.
That's great. I said When I Come Around, and it's just Forrest like walking around Greenbow in the 90s. He's just like doesn't know what to do with himself. He's like ran and he's still like mowing lawns, but
The feather floats up as he lets his son ride the bus to school.
Yeah. And they were gonna make a sequel to this called Gump and Company about
I'm
his
so
son.
glad they didn't.
Yeah, it was a terrible idea, but I feel like that could have definitely easily used the track from this record. Okay,
Oh, yeah.
next category: 5 Degrees of U2.
Well, this is by far the easiest one we have, Preston.
So sad.
Do
you know this?
U2 and Green Day recorded When the Saints Are Coming at the Superdome.
Yep.
After Hurricane
right
Katrina.
after Katrina.
Gosh.
So, shout out to that strange collab.
It was a bop, though.
Yeah. I mean, it was fun. I definitely bought it and put it on my iPod.
I was going to say, that's like the penultimate iTunes purchase is The Saints Are Coming in 06 or whenever that was. Gosh, that's great. Or I guess 03's Katrina. I don't know.
No, Katrina was 05, so.
Yeah,
it was 06.
It was on their Vertigo tour.
It was a Monday Night Football game, which is hilarious because I'd never in my ever life would have associated Dookie or Green Day with football, but here we are.
U2.
You talking U2?
There was a lot going on.
Did y'all draft like an alternate track order? It's the next category.
So I guess we were done with that.
I said it would have been great to open with Welcome to Paradise. Kind of like an ironic like opening, like Welcome to Paradise. So Welcome to Paradise, having a blast. Burnout, Basket Case, Chump into Longview, She, Sassafras Roots, When I Come Around, Sleepus, Pulling Teeth, Coming Clean in the End, FOD.
Wow, you really switched it up.
Yeah, switch it up.
Big time.
Yeah, alternate track list.
I think FOD has to be the end no matter what.
Yeah. Okay, well, yeah, our last category, we like to wrap it up with just the meaning and significance of this record. What do you think Dookie by Green Day means, or what's the significance or achievement of that album?
I don't think it's really that different than the meaning behind the other albums we've done. And I think it's going to continue to be kind of similar, but lyrically, emotionally, musically, there's so much that the listeners of this album at that time could relate to, whether it was, whether it was what you struggled with personally, whether it was just like, hey, for me, it was like, I've got too much energy that I can't expel. And like, this was a great outlet just to like bang my head and jump around and at Asher's show, mosh to,
right.
And just be ridiculous and like kind of have like this freedom of expression, in a form of just running wild. That's the outlet I found in it.
Yeah.
Other people, obviously, I'm sure, like analyzed the lyrics heavily and were like, "Oh my gosh," and found some way to relate in that way. That was much less my experience with it growing up. In recent years, I guess I have done that some more and like just kind of dug into what was really going into the writing of the album. But I still just love to get wild with the album.
I agree. 26 years in, it still has just rock and roll punk value. It's fun. It's just fun.
Yeah.
Austin, do you have meaning or significance you kind of gleaned from this?
It just struck me that it's 39 minutes of Billy Joe out there being like, I'm sick and tired of you not paying attention to this. Whatever it is on any song, which is probably what punk is, really.
I was going to say,
but
sounds like you figured out what punk is after all.
Yeah.
The more you know.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things that this album achieved. We've hit on a lot of it, but I think for better or for worse, there's a very blunt, honest celebration of passivity or struggle or real life, and people bought it. Like, people bought into it. And I think you could like really look into it and say, yeah, people were kind of sick of the hyper capitalism of the 80s and this and this and that, and this is like the beginning of.
They were burnout, so to speak.
Honestly, yeah.
One might say, yes.
This is like the beginning of the Clinton era. Like Reagan and Bush are kind of like, wrapping up like that whole hyper patriotic, nationalistic 80s over capital whatever era, and a lot of that, even in the music kind of world, feels like fake. Like a lot of hair metal has kind of been responsible for the death of like modern rock and roll as we know it. Like hip hop is kind of like growing in popularity.
Yeah,
there are all these variables, and there's something that's just so bluntly honest and careless about this record. And we mentioned on the front end, but Nirvana comes out with this like deep, introspective, kind of obscure combat or thought toward all of that. But this is like a just open, like, hey, this is for everybody, and it's silly and it's stupid and it's fun and it kicks tail and people can just identify with that. I mean, Diamond album, top 500 Rolling Stone record, and there's something about that. And I think there's like something that's like adolescent about this record. It's like there's something that is like the joy of exploration and discovery and childhood that kind of like comes with it. And yeah, it's like a careless iteration of some of those themes that were explored on Nevermind and In Utero and some of those like deeper 90s grunge records, So yeah, I think there's some good stuff to glean from here. I think that's like why it's upheld and is still relevant 26 years later, but it's a good record. All right, any other thoughts? Any other closing clots? Any other closing clots?
Anybody?
Closing thoughts.
I'll let you know as soon as I figure out what that is.
We're just gonna take Austin. So. We're gonna take Austin on a deep dive into just a punk journey.
Here's the thing. It's my own fault that I don't like punk. I admit that. I know that. It's because I can only think of like middle schoolers who are trying to be edgy. when I hear a lot of punk music, that's what I picture.
I think that's kind of the point. I think you try to be edgy in middle school and then you become edgy. You either like stop or continue later on, So
yeah. But yeah, we'll talk more about it next time we review a punk record. All right. Next week, we're going to hop into something a little different. We're going to talk about some one-hit wonders and singles from the 80s. So we're looking forward to talking about that with you. Won't be our traditional outline for a normal episode, but we've really enjoyed talking about the 1994 album Dookie by Green Day. We really had a great time diving in and talking about the meaning, significance, and story around this record. If you haven't already, please take a chance and subscribe. Go ahead and follow us on social media. You can check us out on Spotify. You can also email us at poststampodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to connect with you and hear from you. We look forward to talking to you next week. So we'll TTYL later. All right.
Peace out.
See you.
Sometimes my mind plays tricks on me. It all keeps adding up. I think I'm breaking up. Am I just paranoid or am I just stunned?